What is up, Hiro?
Nothing much, man. You're not having a good day today, huh?
Technology, I don't know, it's not working. Listen, it doesn't matter because you're not in the studio, so I thought, why not? I'll just show
No.
people what the studio looks like at my house.
Yeah.
That's all good. Hey, good show today, man. I'm looking forward to talking about this. It's not something that gets covered overly often, but it's a pretty big part of what we do.
Yeah.
Oh, kakarigeiko.
Yeah. Who likes it, man?
Oh, it's a good example of what sets kendo apart. Look, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if other sports have like a similar thing. I'm sure they do. You can do horrible things like hill sprints and other nasty
Yeah,
practices.
I
But
think judo does kind of going a million
yeah,
times,
yeah,
I think. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But they don't know how hard kendo kakarigeiko is.
No, it's very, we don't really show people our secret
That's right.
method.
That's right.
Yeah.
When I did my study in Japan, it was on violence and what have you in kendo, right? And
Hmm.
the kakarigeiko, the topic of kakarigeiko was like central to that because when we do kakarigeiko in a training, if you haven't seen that before, let's say you're a parent or you walk even just walking past the dojo and you're looking through the window through the door, it's a really aggressive practice, right?
Yeah, if they see this part or
Yeah,
this part, you're
yeah,
probably
yeah, 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 totally, man, totally.
yeah.
I remember though, because when you came over to New Zealand as a young Japanese guy, and you'd
Yeah.
been training with some pretty scary bastards. Let's be honest. Um, you brought a lot of sort of, let's say, traditional Japanese practices
True.
with you with regards to kakarigeiko. You used to tell me a lot of stories about how you, as a young fella, would do kakarigeiko
Hmm.
when you were a kid, and the sensei would push you from behind, the old scoop around the back of the head, and you used to slide across
Oh
the
yeah, that
floor on
was
the
that was a fun part. You go. All right. The says there's a pressure behind, right? And you go, shoo on the. You can go psh, to the end of the dojo with the door sliding on the floor. Psh. That was
So
fun.
it wasn't a case of who could do the best looking kakarigeiko. It's the person who
Yeah,
could slide the furthest along the dojo
yeah.
floor. Is that right?
And or roll, where you go,
Oh, the rolls.
and it
The
goes,
rolls.
and then you stand there,
Yeah,
and they go, and they go, oh,
yeah,
I'm looking cool now. Yeah,
yeah. It's funny what constitutes cool within the dojo, eh? Like who
yeah,
who
man.
who can take the beating the most eloquently. I remember before we get into the good stuff. I remember Toshigoshi Gecko with you and my brother and a few others.
You always talk about.
I know I'm not going to let you forget it, man. This was straight up like horrible, horrible memories.
Oh gosh!
For
Every
those that
time
were
we
interested to know,
get together.
tackled me onto the ground. I was only what I must have been a wee dot. I must have been about 3 or 4 years old, Hiro. No, I was
Yeah, right.
more like 11 or 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was pretty brutal. The old knee on the head onto the ground, this sort of stuff, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, like let it
Um,
go, man. Let it go.
I can't. I won't. I refuse to. Okay, now let's get
Yeah.
into it. So last week we were talking to Dr. Takuya about getting the mental edge. Today is sort of an extension of that, in as much as there was a point that you brought up, Hiro, last week when we were talking about getting the mental edge, and it was around building your, first of all, building your confidence, but also
Mhm.
building your autopilot, right? So let's unpack those a little bit. The first one that we're talking about, why would we do? What are the benefits of kakarigeiko? Well, from our point of view, building that confidence and building your fitness, because let's be honest, the physicality that's required to do kakarigeiko dynamically, I won't say well because there's a continuum there, but dynamically and to get those strikes in quick succession and so on, it takes a lot of physical effort, right? But to build your confidence through that, right? And you talked last week about standing on the edge of the shiai or whatever, knowing that you've done kakarigeiko and
Mhm.
using that to build your confidence, right?
Right. And yeah, like probably you can say, okay, so you're at the final of a tournament, and it goes enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. That's my one of my experience too. And about 13 enjoy, you go, oh come on, man, I just said okay, hit me. I don't care, you know. But then they go, okay, one more strike, man.
Absolutely.
You go,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that is kind of part of Kakarigeiko too. Never
100%.
give up. Yeah.
Yeah. I had that exact thing happen to me at the World Champs a couple of years ago. In Encho, I was fighting a chap from China, the Chinese team,
Oh,
and I found him incredibly difficult to fight. He was a really, really smart, really good fighter. Um, and we went into Encho, and he was just fitter than me. It was exactly as you said. I got to the point through one of the Enchos, and I just went, "Oh, I can't.
yeah.
I've lost it." And this is the World Champs, man. Like I didn't muck about in my preparation, but this guy had done the work. He'd done what was necessary, and almost certainly Kakarigeiko played a part in that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the fitness and getting the confidence, as you say, just to launch into one of those, those key cuts halfway through, because the other guy or girl is going to be just as tired as you.
Mhm.
Who's got that edge, right? Absolutely. Which is a nice segue, man, because the other thing that we've talked about is about the autopilot, right? And taking those opportunities.
Right.
Do you think that, like, when you were in your younger days, your competitive days, you did a lot of kakarigeiko, you did a lot of shiai. Kakarigeiko would
Mm.
have been part of the preparation for that, right?
Right. It's a kind of probably we're going to talk about this later, but Kakarigeiko becomes a pattern too. You know, man. I mean, either you make it as a pattern or not. And one of my favorite technique was doing shikimen and strike man
Yeah,
without moving my feet. Just go bam, pow, like that.
yeah, yeah.
I won a lot of shiai back in old days like that. So
Right.
differently
So that's
autopilot.
when you've come off, you've done something, and the other guy's chasing you, and you just launch over the top of him, right? Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And you're right, because those sorts of things, we always talk here. At least I always sort of make the point: being purposeful in what we're doing, be
hmm
deliberate, make a goal for that training or for that exercise, and really be conscious of it, so that we're working purposefully, right? And if
right,
you were to
right,
take something like that, a scenario like that, where you've got your opponent chases you up as you're moving back, because that's what we're told to do, to keep the pressure
right,
on and keep the zanshin and all that sort of stuff. And if you can build into your kakarigeko this ability to throw change directions quickly, keeping, as you say, without sort of changing your footwork, back, here he comes, bah, over
yeah,
top of him, you can build those into your kakarieko to build that autopilot, right? And we
hmm
were talking about attentional focus, where do we focus, what should we focus on? When we build in those reactions as an autopilot to take opportunities into our kakarigeiko, we can then look elsewhere in the shiaijo or around the dojo to know what else is going on. I might be really close to the white line
right,
doing my hikiwaza, but if it's built in my autopilot to react when the other person comes close, I know still that I've got about a meter or half a meter behind me before I step out and give away half a point, right? So building those things in to develop your autopilot with purpose in your kakarigeko, massive, eh?
right,
Absolutely.
right.
Hey man, building team or club spirit. Is this like do you still do this in your own trainings when you run trainings to use kakarigeko to build a bit of a camaraderie, a
Not
bit of
now,
a
mate.
spirit?
Not now. No. Since majority of my students are over 30s, so it's more like I don't really do much Kakarigeiko. It's more like going back to basics, building up.
Right.
Kakarigeiko needs effort, right? In the rhythm,
Yeah.
and you have to have a good motodachi as well. So when
Yeah.
I do Kakarigeiko, I will be only motodachi, and they're gonna do
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
yeah, not
Yeah.
much, but I know probably you should talk about that.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's fair. And without knowing your, your training group and who's with you anymore, I would be of the opinion personally, I wouldn't worry too much about the age of my students. And the reason that I say that is not because I've made this mistake where everybody is treated the same in terms of their physical ability. And I've lost members over the years because of that approach. So I know exactly what you're saying. But my attitude to Kakarigeiko now, at least as a coach, is that we need to be pushing ourselves as far as we can, or just a little bit beyond that, right? So, there's the dog. So we're pushing ourselves just a little bit further. So if you've got a certain sort of capacity with your own, injuries that you've brought along, I'm not asking you as a coach, I'm not asking you to do the same as that 16-year-old in your 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s. I'm asking you to push as far as you can safely as a mature practitioner. The idea is, for me, is to use Kakarigeiko to build that spirit. We do this, we fight in the shiai, not based on age, man. We fight in the shiai, team shiai and kendo, based on your appropriateness for that role, and what skill set you bring. So we all benefit as a group if we bandy together, if we sort of surround ourselves around this tough practice of Kakarigeiko, but we did it together as a team, or we did it together as a club. And so that's sort of my, I totally know what you mean. And I think there's a bit of caution that needs to be taken when you have different physical abilities and experience, of course, as well. But Kakarigeiko lends itself to one of our viewers, I won't mention his name, but he's made a comment last week, 64 years old, still doing Kakarigeiko, and that was in response to your story last week about your dad.
Right.
So it's possible, right?
That too.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I really reckon that Kakarigeiko and as a team building is pretty good. And also, if you know how to receive it, that's one thing. One thing is very important. Sometimes if people don't know how to receive it, they tend to get carried away. So they give you too much sometimes, and they don't know when to stop. So that's one thing I'm worried about. So when I do Kakarigeiko, I'll be motodachi and then just make sure everyone is okay.
Yeah, for sure. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but this is a good segue, man, because we've talked about some of the benefits from our perspective, and I guess we could go on and on, but with the interest in getting the conversation moving on in mind, if you have any other additional perspectives about, what are the benefits of Kakarigeiko? What can you get out of Kakarigeiko in your club? Put them down in the comments below. It'd be really good to see how other people consider this. Obviously, there's other things out there, but by all means, stick them down below so other people can see what the approach is in other dojos. So let's check out the ways to make it better, right? Tips for making it better. Boom. Patterns. This is my one here, baby. So patterns. Now I know. Now I've had this conversation over the years with lots of different people, including yourself, including my older brother. Should there be patterns in Kakarigeiko? Some people say no. Kakarigeiko shouldn't have patterns. It's about picking the opportunities when they arise. When the motodachi gives you the opportunities, you have to be able to take them quickly. Totally agree. Totally on board with that. Neighborhood dogs drive me nuts.
The bloody needs Kakarigeiko, mate.
Yeah.
Put the knee on his head.
What's that, man?
Put your knee on his head.
On the head. All right, we'll see how that goes. Some of the neighborhood dogs are pretty scary, man. So there's this idea that you shouldn't be doing patterns, or you don't need to do patterns, because then it becomes uchikomigeko or something along those lines, gohon waza, that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
when you have a group of athletes or a group of kendoka that are learning to do kakarigeiko, and even when they get intermediate and even advanced, patterns make a massive difference to the quality of the exercise. So I looked around for a video of this, of my guys from previous years, but I couldn't find one. But I can assure you, this is the pattern down the bottom of the screen. This is the pattern that we would use regularly. And we had a range of different people, in terms of kendo ability, but also in terms of kendo, of age, doing this pattern. And it made it so much easier to get a quality kakarigeiko come out. So you would start off with a men strike, run through. And that could be a big one, small one. It depends what focus you place on the training. Then a kote. Now, I wish I did have a video for this, because the kote that we would do was received with what I think they call the 3-point defense, right? Where you're holding the shiai up above your head and trying to cover your men, your kote, and your tiki. The only thing that's open is gyakudo, right? So we used to receive this second cut, this kote, like that. So we were becoming, we were training that autopilot to react to those awkward sort of methods of defense, and coming up and under like that. So you go, man, run through, turn around quickly, and then the kote would be to the side. Then we'd go into men tayatari hikimen, and the focus for that was getting angles. So you would come and do the tayatari and try and bounce off to the side to try and create a little bit more of dynamic training for your footwork, but just as easily turning that hikiwaza into a kote or a do, because you're using the angles to get around. So it's not necessarily man tayatari hikiman, which is absolutely fine if that's what the level is, but you can get more comfortable knowing what's happening next. Motodachi doesn't have to worry too much, because he knows or she knows what's happening next, and we've got this pattern. Then the kote men tayatari hikido. This was a real rhythmic thing, like something to build rhythm. Pa-pam, pam, pam, pam. Yeah. So it wasn't so much a kote, man, tayatari was stepping back. It was very short and very sharp. Pa-pam, pa-pam. That's a kote man, and then push, and then do, and then straight from there, like you were talking about before with the hikiwaza and going over the top. Pa-pam, pam. Straight away coming from that kote men tayatari without making too much backwards movements, going straight in for that men again. And then we would finish with men, because it's a nice, satisfying way to come together. But most importantly, throughout all of this, because motodachi and kakarite knew what was happening next, like I said, you can focus on the quality of the ippon. So the better your motodachi is or becomes, and the more confidence the motodachi has, and that's a point we'll talk about in a minute, the motodachi then takes on a really important role of assessing the quality of that strike. So that first men, if it slides off the side, sorry pal, one more, until they get a really good quality ippon. Now you've got that ippon, we can do the kote. You missed it, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. Got it. Okay, now we move into men tayatari hikimen, and so on. And so the quality, as I keep saying, becomes the primary thing. You're looking for ippons in that high intensity training environment, right? Now, this is a pattern that we did. It was easy for people to remember. We used it in the New Zealand team a couple of times. You can make any pattern that surrounds this, whatever your goals are. This is what worked for us. Again, the quality was what was important. And knowing, both the motodachi knowing and the attacker knowing what was happening next, you could really start to emphasize those aspects of the training, right? What do you think about patterns, man? Have you used patterns before?
I've been thinking about it now. Master Miyazaki Sensei, right? He was giving me the hard time. That all we did, I think if motodachi is good, they do that. They make it pattern.
Yeah, right.
And then they do exactly what you said. And so, you said traditionally, they don't make pattern in kakarigeiko, but they do. If motodachi is good, they try to uh, pull out your potential to do so. They start controlling you, right? In kakarigeiko,
Yeah.
they start controlling you. This pattern, man, He-Man, and that my favorite, technique was He-Man man. That was from Kakarigeiko with Miyazaki Sensei, and he didn't
Yeah.
tell me what to do. I was doing that in Kakarigeiko.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So they said, making a pattern is not good, but they do so
Yeah.
if it's necessary, and they know in their head or through their experience that works, but they don't want to make it as
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
let's do this. They don't want to do it. I think
Absolutely.
that's what we exactly do. But again, it's motodachi has to be experienced and really good to do
Yeah.
so. But
Yeah.
this pattern, this is pretty. Yeah, I think that we should be doing that.
Yeah. It's helpful,
Yeah,
right? And I've just put up
it is
the
helpful.
next thing. Training the motodachi to draw out better quality cuts and block
Mm.
at certain times and
Oh,
things like that.
there you
And
go.
when you like those people out there have trained in Japanese universities, for example, it's not necessarily the only place to learn this lesson or observe this sort of trend, but it certainly is a really good place to see it. When you do the amount of kakarigeiko they do with people who are quite confident and dynamic in their movements and so on, the motodachi role for me took on uh, um, a really different sort of experience, and what I started to see in my own kendo was what I was noticing when I would fight the sensei. They would see patterns in my attacking during the jigeko, not necessarily men, kote, men, all those stuff that I just rattled off, but they would see when my attacks were coming,
Mhm.
and they were able then to do those sensei suriage men, so little taps over and they can hit you man. When you start to get into a rhythm and a pattern in your kakarigeiko as the motodachi, you see that men coming through. All of a sudden, you're able to ride that wave and execute a suriage waza. And I know a lot of people already know this, but it's really worth sort of spelling it out, I think, again. Motodachi isn't a chance for a rest. And if you
Uh-huh.
are resting during the motodachi practice, you are missing a massive
Exactly.
opportunity to get better in your oji waza, in your counterattacks. Just like I say, you've got someone, they're coming in to strike men, for example, because it's in that pattern just before, there's a man at the start and a man at the end. To use that opportunity to practice your suriage when someone's going as hard and as fast as they can into an attack, what better training is there to add into it? And then they turn around and they go again. Well, now you've got to think, crikey, what's my oji waza going to be this time? Rather than just block, smash, how can I turn this rhythmical exchange of attacks into something that's going to help me with my own oji waza? And I guarantee, do that enough and with purpose enough times, it will come through into your jigeko and into your shiai practice, because you'll have that rhythm built in to your counter attacks, your oji waza, right? Massive.
Right. Definitely.
Okay, Hiro, you asked me before we came online, what can you do from a coaching point of view
Hmm.
uh, to do kakarigeiko better? This one for me, I love this idea, and I just don't see it. And I think what we do is we fall into the trap with kakarigeiko of doing it at the end, right? Do it at the end of training. You do your jigeko, or you do kihon, kirikashi kihon, put a jigeko, and chuck in the kakarigeiko at the end just to make sure everyone gets a really good sweat.
Yeah, but that is probably a lot of people don't even do that. Maybe like
Oh, really?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they do Kakarigeiko as a training
Oh,
parts.
yeah, yep,
Maybe I don't know.
yep.
I don't know if they do that at the end of Jigeko like we used to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, there's probably plenty of ways that people do it, and this might just be something that people are doing. It might be a brand new perspective. The thing is,
Hmm.
like a training, like a physiological training point of view, to work in the high intensity stuff into your jigeko, which is not low intensity, it's medium to high. I think arguably a 30-minute session is really going to get your heart rate going. We saw that in that video that we posted the other day, right? But to infuse Kakarigeiko into the jigeko has an added benefit. And it goes back to all the points that we've talked about in terms of building confidence and autopilot, team spirit, etc. But what we're doing physiologically is we're adding in that extra high intensity bout or time frame in the middle of the overall aerobic sort of experience of jigeko, right? Now, how do you do this? Well, any which way that works for you, really. If I was the coach in a situation like this, make it very clear, right? In the middle of the jigeko, when you hear the drum, right? Or when I blow the whistle, straight into kakarigeiko, straight into ai kakarigeiko, or the person on this side, you guys go first, straight into jigeko, kakarigeiko. When I hit the drum again, kotai. Then when I hit the drum again, go back into jigeko. Same partner, no rest, straight back into jigeko. Some of us know this as a variation of kubun geiko, which brings horrible feelings and traumatic memories from training with Alex Sensei and the national team. I think we did back-to-back 13 kubun geiko. It was like an hour long. I don't know. I don't know where that
sounds like that sounds like tie-dye stuff.
Some sort of evil that came from Wanzaki Sensei.
Someone that very, very evil came up with it.
And here's us pushing more evil onto the kendo world. So you can skin this in a number of different ways. I guess it's important the concept is that rather than putting it as a separate thing, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But in order to get more benefit out of it in terms of training your autopilot, let's think about it in a jigeko session. If in a jigeko session was like a shiai, for example, and you're trying to, you've got 5 minutes or 3 minutes to get the ippon you want. There's times in a shiai where you need to step it up, like you were talking about at the start. You need to step up and get it. And if you're burning at that aerobic level over the space of 3 to 5 minutes, however long the jigeko is, or however long the shiai might be, and then boom, you're required to, and you've trained in the ways that bring your intensity up during that time, and you're bashing out really quality cuts with the help of your motodachi and the standard of quality that they set for you. This becomes a huge benefit in terms of, again, physical capacity and confidence as well. So I highly recommend thinking about different ways or different times to infuse kakarigeiko into your session. Yeah. Kubun geiko, man.
That's an idea,
yeah. Horrible. Now, last one. What do you think of this? Change the thinking. When you were young, it's not punishment.
What?
Commonly used as, right? And it's probably why people are going, I hope, I'm just making an assumption, that's why people are going to want to watch this. Kakarigeiko is a training, like we talked about at the start. It's hard, right? And oftentimes, even if it's just joking around, we say, all right, you didn't make, or you're late to training, kakarigeiko, or you lost an ippon, kakarigeiko. It's like those.
It's your birthday, kakarigeiko.
Yeah, birthday, kakarigeiko. It's like when you're at school and you're late for PE class and the teacher makes you run to the fence and back or do push-ups or something. Like it's like, oh, it doesn't make me want to do this anymore, Yeah. If we can change the thinking around kakarigeiko, the benefits that we've talked about plus alpha are massive, right? Because especially when it comes to the mental edge and developing team spirit and confidence and those sorts of things, if we look at kakarigeiko not as a punishment, but as something that's going to strengthen us or me, it's going to make us sharper. It's going to make us develop that and maintain that mental edge. It's going to do all these things. So we relish the opportunity to do kakarigeiko. Massive difference, right? In the psychology literature and research, they call this reversal theory. So something negative happens out there. Well, that's just a matter of perspective, right? So, you know, the fact that there's kakarigeiko that we have to do today is largely out of our control. That's up to the sensei or whoever decides the menu. How can we flip that and say, great, what an opportunity for me to do well, you know, or to get the edge over my next opponent, or to get closer to my nidan, to my sandan, to my yondan, whatever the case may be. If we're an athlete or a kendoka watching this, think about that the next time you're driving to training. I know I'm going to have to do something hard. As soon as sensei tells me that we're doing kakarigeiko, if I can switch in, it doesn't happen first training easily, right? It's a case of working it and practicing. It's a muscle that you have to build, for want of another analogy. If you can switch that around and go, yes, kakarigeiko, bring it on, baby, here we go, the opportunities become much, much greater to take benefit from it. Same thing, if you're a sensei or a coach, think about the ways that you can encourage your members, your students, your athletes to make that shift. And it might be in the way that you bring it up. It might be the way that you talk about it. It might be the way that you overhear other people talking about kakarigeiko and suggest a different way of looking at it. Hey, man, this is going to make us the #1 club in our region. This is cool. This is an opportunity. You know, let's do this together and bloody well get in and do it yourself, you know. But, you know, like, to flip the script and to change or reverse the thinking around it, and not look at it as a punishment, but as an opportunity. Right. I see massive benefits.
Yeah, and one thing I just wanted to add to that thing is that when I went to New Zealand, and you know, the Alex was hugging. I think that was you or something. I don't remember. After kakarigeiko, you know how he gives kakarigeiko.
Yeah,
and he gives a hug at the end.
Yes,
and that was a culture shock to me.
Right.
Yeah, and I go, oh, he's giving the hug, and then you know, ever since I saw that, and I asked him about the reason, you know, like, well, it's giving the hug because he, you know, your mate was going through the hard training.
Yeah.
Why not giving them a hug? I mean, okay. And never, you know, a lot of senseis gave you a hard time, and then after he gave you training, he just walks away, right? Yeah. No hugs, man. It's a cultural thing, you know. We don't hug people in Japan, so
yeah.
I thought that was. I think that is after you do a lot of kakarigeiko, and then you know, it's that person, motodachi, gives you a hug or say well done. I think that is a real reward to that person. I think.
Totally.
Yeah, coach has to do that. Probably
Absolutely.
they do. Yeah, they do. But yeah,
absolutely. A reward or acknowledgement for the effort that's put in there.
Well,
and also you don't forget, if the person hugs you back, it means that they're not going to sue you. So that's important legal recourse as well. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I think those things, you know, like making the culture around the kakarigeiko more positive. And we all know the benefits. We all know it. That's why we do it when we have to do it. But if we can flip the script a little bit, I think that'll make a massive difference to the quality of the stuff that you get out of it. Hey, good conversation, man. Thank you very much, Hiro, for your insights.
Thanks,
thank you, everyone, for watching. We really, really do appreciate it. As always, let us know what you think of our discussions. Please let us know what else you want us to talk about, and any other positive reinforcement that would be
right.
great.
If you don't give us any feedback, we will give you kakarigeiko.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Oh, it's not principle.
Yeah, you're welcome for the kakarigeiko is what we mean to say. All right, Hiro, good to see you, man. We'll catch you next week.
Hey, cheers, bro.
All right.